Hi everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening even. We are here today with another speaker, top speaker from the to the Beach Handball World Congress. Today we are going to enjoy with a player, a top player, who is Ebiye Jeremy. This is a Pan American champion 3 years ago. And this is one of the most prominent players in the World Games 2 years ago. But that is not the reason to be here, because that is, well, a good question. But I would like to know how did he to create a new quality, a new feature in this game, this player game. He's an amazing player. He has a very difficult to understand ability, because I can't imagine doing whatever he does. Well, I don't want to extend my introduction. I prefer Ebiye do for himself. Please, Ebiye, tell us whatever you want about yourself and about your skills.
Hey, Manuel, I appreciate you having me on the Congress. For those of you guys who don't know me, as Manuel said, I'm Ebiye Jeremy Dodoma. I play for the USA men's beach handball team. I've been playing for the past 4 years. I got into beach handball in 2015 and made the US national team in 2016. As Manuel said, we won the Pan American Championship in 2016. And just last month, we won the first North American Caribbean Championship, where I was the MVP, and we qualified for the upcoming World Beach Games in Doha, Qatar. So that's me, and you'll get a lot more of my handball story, and in particular, what Manuel was referring to is my unique ability to play ambidextrously. The topic I'll talk about is ambidexterity in beach handball. So, if Manuel, you're ready, let's get to it. As I mentioned, the topic I'll be addressing this Congress is ambidexterity in beach handball. As Manuel mentioned, I have the unique ability to throw with both my left and my right hands. And the story behind it, at least from my perspective, is quite interesting. And so I figured it would be worth sharing amongst the beach handball fans across the globe. So first things first, a lot of people ask me, like, was I born ambidextrous? And there is a little bit of a story behind how I initially got into ambidexterity. Sorry about that audio. So if we go back to 2008, I'm 15 years old, and I came across this video. It's pretty popular on YouTube. And the player who's pitching, his name is Pat Vendetti. He throws with both his left and his right arm. And then the guy batting bats with both his right and his left. And I don't know how many baseball fans we have in the beach handball world. But in baseball, it's advantageous if you can bat right-handed against a left-handed pitcher, or bat left-handed against a right-handed pitcher, because you'll see a little bit more of the ball coming out of the pitcher's hand if you're a little bit further away from his release point. And this video is pretty funny because it was one of the first times like two ambidextrous players are going against each other, and you can see how they keep on switching sides. He actually has a glove that he can wear on either hand. And so he steps up as if he's going to throw left-handed, so the batter moves to the right to get the advantage, and then he switches to his right hand. And once the pitcher switches to his right hand, the batter switches to the left side. And this went on for like 10 minutes in a baseball game. It's actually really comedic if you watch the whole thing. But it piqued my interest because that like month, because I grew up playing baseball and basketball as an American. Those are my main two sports. And I was more or less right-handed throughout my life growing up until I was 15 years old. But around this time, I always thought of like, why do people only like learn how to use one hand? You know, it seems like it'd be very beneficial if you can learn how to use both hands in a variety of sports. And this was before I got into handball. But after I saw this video, I did a lot of research on this guy, the pitcher, Pat Vendetti, because I wanted to learn to see if I could be ambidextrous myself. And one of his news articles referenced an ambidexterity coach by the name of Michael J. Lavery, who wrote a book called Whole Brain Power. It's a picture of Michael, and there's a picture of his book, Whole Brain Power. But the unique thing with Michael, I'm sorry, give me a second, I'm pulling up some notes, is Michael he's a really eccentric guy, and he had been working with ambidextrous tennis players, ambidextrous golfers. He'd been working with a number of athletes on learning how to play on both sides of their body for their respective sport. And as I mentioned, the two main sports I played growing up were basketball and baseball, and I wanted to learn how to be ambidextrous in those two sports. And Michael had me doing a really interesting series of drills that I'll pull up here. Can this go full screen? I don't think it can go full screen, but he had me doing things like write with both hands, as you can see here, writing a little message with both my left and my right hand on the same time. It ultimately leads a message, but I started writing ambidextrously. That's one of the big things I did to try to learn how to develop the fine motor control on both my left and my right. He'd have me do things like bouncing a golf ball off of a hammer and just different coordination drills where I'm utilizing both hands, developing the strength and coordination and the ability just to be able to use both hands. You see here, I'm juggling two balls with one hand and bouncing a golf ball off a mallet with another hand. He had me doing a variety of these different ambidextrous drills, and I started adapting them primarily for basketball, because basketball was my first love. It was the first sport that I was really passionate about. And starting that summer of 2008 and over the next several years, I really made it a part of my life just to learn everything I could ambidextrously and learn how to throw with both hands, shoot with both hands, juggle with both hands, just develop the coordination to ultimately set the foundation to be able to do anything with either hand. And like I said, this was all pre-handball. I want to say I'm 16 in this video. This is the last little clip here before I go any further, so I'll let this play through. But so Michael became my ambidexterity coach around the time I was 15 years old, and he had me doing all these crazy drills to try to develop the ability to ultimately play with both hands. And initially, the goal was to be ambidextrous for basketball. As you saw at the end, me shooting with both my left and my right. That was the long-term goal, was to maybe play in the NBA or play professional basketball and do everything with both hands. But a couple months after I started doing this training, I got involved in handball after seeing it in the 2008 Beijing Olympics. I think it was maybe 6 months later, beginning 2009, I started playing indoor handball with the Portland Sasquatch Handball Club in Portland, Oregon. And I took all the drills that I was doing for basketball and I just applied them to handball. So the same kind of juggling coordination drills that I would do in basketball, I just took that same ball skills mentality and applied it to handball, and doing different drills like throwing handballs off the wall and switching hands and doing so while simultaneously juggling. Another drill I would do, I'd hold two tennis balls in one hand and I'd throw it off the wall, and then I'd catch each ball separately with each hand. And I just do a variety of these drills to just develop my strength and my coordination and just my ability to use both sides. And come 2014, I made the USA national indoor handball team. And I initially started as, let me go back a slide, skip that, should be here. Hopefully this video will play. So when I made the indoor national team for the first time, 2014, 20 years old, and at the time we had a number of left wings who were considerably more experienced than I was. I'm not sure if that played. I'm going to try playing that one more time. There were a bunch of left wings, and as you know, Manuel, every team is always looking for right wings, just because I want to say there's like 8 to 10 times as many right-handers as there are left-handers in the world. And when I got into handball, I learned that the positions in handball were dictated by your handedness. And the righties tend to play on the left side of the court, and the lefties tend to play on the right side of the court. So the thought I had was, if I could be left-handed and I can play on the right wing, there's probably 8 to 10 times less competition for a spot on the right wing as there is if I want to try to be a left wing, because 15 years old is pretty late to get into a sport. But I figured there'd be less competition if I wanted to go pro, if I could be a right wing. And so when I got into handball, for the most part, I was initially as a right wing, and I had to use my left hand to play on that right wing. Let's see if I can get this second video to load. My apologies if there's any sort of delay or lag. But just the same type of drills that I do for basketball, I would apply, and I just kind of experimented in the gym, just the different drills, different coordination things, throwing different hands, different release points. And ultimately, being able to play with my left hand and develop some sort of ambidexterity was what allowed me to play on the U.S. national team when I was 20. If I was just right-handed, there were too many left wings in the national team pool at the time for me to get any sort of playing experience. But what ended up happening was 2014, I made the national team, and then our starting right wing got injured before we had an exhibition game, and my head coach at the time, Javier Garcia Cuesta, gave me the opportunity to play in his place, and I played well. And a couple months later, got to play in the 2014 Pan American Championships. What ended up happening after that 2014 Pan American Championships was we had a couple left-handed players come into the national team pool, and one of our left wings got injured. I think he tore his ACL. And so coach moved me from the right wing to the left wing. Not sure how smoothly that played. I'll play it back one more time. But after making the national team and being the starting right wing, I ultimately made the transition to being the starting left wing. And the same type of drills and training mindset that I developed starting when I was 15 years old, I just adapted that to handball, first on the right wing and then on the left wing. I got another clip here. But ultimately, when I had the time, had the freedom, I started experimenting with, shooting from both wings and training. It was more exciting for me. And I felt as if I learned more about each position than if I were to take all my reps just on one side. And I'm going to pull up a link here. I'm not sure if the quality's going to be high enough. So, I mean, by the time 2015 rolled around, I had experience, playing on our right wing, and had experience playing on our left wing. And so going into training, I'd work on both. And this was my favorite conditioning drill to do after we sorry about that. May have to edit that out. But one of my favorite drills to do, I'm not sure if the quality is showing up well enough. My apologies if it's low. But one of my favorite conditioning drills to do is after I get done with practice, I'd put 5 balls on each wing and then just go back and forth. And by the time I took my 10th wing shot, I was exhausted. But just pass the ball to myself, roll, take a couple steps, try to hit the far post, and be able to do that on both sides. And this is really my foundation as an ambidextrous beach handball player, was my experience learning how to become ambidextrous on our indoor handball team. That's that. Go back to the presentation. But one of the things that I learned early going into beach handball is that you can really use either hand on either side. And I'll show a couple clips to illustrate what I mean. So here's a right-hander on the right wing. Normally, you use your left hand on the right wing, and then here's a pivot in the left-handed pivot spot, utilizing his right hand.
Mm-hmm.
And then from this most recent European Championships, Hungary in their semifinal against Denmark, you have a lefty who made a spin shot with his left, and then you had a righty make a spin shot on his right. So just kind of break this down. Normally, especially in indoor handball, you use your lefties on the right side and use your righties on the left side. And one of the players who really shifted the paradigm in that thinking was the Russian captain, Roman Kalashnikov. You can see he does what I call a reverse 360, where he's a righty on the right-handed side. And he efficiently does a spin shot. He's one of the best players in the world. And then here's an example from us against Russia. Drew Donlin, just an amazing athlete, just signed with Ademar de Leon in the first division in Spain for indoor handball. If you have the power and the size to do so, he's a right-hander. He's on the left-handed pivot side, but he has the power to kind of open up and still let shots rip. And what Roman and Drew are examples of in beach handball is that you can really play with either hand on either side. There's not quite the same handedness restriction in beach handball as there is in indoor handball. See here, Norbi Genya, who's normally the right wing for Hungary. In this set, the second set of their European Championship game, the coach swapped Norbi, who's number 15, and normally plays on this right wing as a lefty. Coach moved him to the left wing, and then number 23, Andrews John, who's normally their left wing, is moved to the right wing. And you see Norby, he's a left-hander on the left side, but you can still score from there. And then on the same token, Andrews John, number 23, who's normally the left wing. I believe he was the MVP of the 2017 European Championships. As a righty on the right-handed side, like Roman, not a problem. And like I said, what those guys illustrate is that you can really use either hand on either side. It's just a matter of adjusting your technique in proximity to where you are on the court. Which brings me to my next point. It's one thing to be right or left-handed, and it's another thing to be right and left-handed. So I'm going to pull up a couple of videos that are going to illustrate what happens once you start leveraging the fact that you can play with either hand. Make this full screen. I'll let it play first, and then I'll kind of break down what you're seeing. In this series of in-flight shots, I'll play it back. I think there's some lag issues. So right here, playing right wing, going for a spin shot with my left hand. Mm-hmm. And then same game, right wing, doing the Kalashnikov, the reverse spin shot with my right hand. And once you develop the ability to utilize either arm, you can use it to be able to spin on either side, regardless of the position you are on the court. It's not as if just because you're on the right side, you have to use a certain hand, or just because you're on the left side, you have to use a certain hand. There are technical possibilities to use either hand on either side, whether that's for a spin shot here. And then this series of in-flights, if you look closely, I'm on the right wing for all of these shots, but I'm alternating which hand I'm shooting with in each shot. So that was a right-handed shot. Here's a left-handed shot. I'll actually go through that series of in-flight shots one more time. Mm-hmm. So first one with my left hand, this one with my right hand, this one with my left hand, here's one with my right, and one more with my left. So for both the in-flight and the spin shot. Even though I'm in just one position here, these are all shots of me playing on the right wing. I can still use either hand on that spot. And that's perfect. All right, so to resume where I left off, once you develop the ability to use your right or your left hand, you can start creating moves that leverage the fact that you can use both hands. In this example right here, I actually go up with my left hand and I switch in the air because the goalkeeper took a position on my left hand, and on the switch, I had space under his leg on the far post. And these are the type of moves that you can start to create once you develop proficiency with both hands. So it's not just you can be right or left-handed. This is where you start to become right and left-handed. And that's probably the next step in the progression as an ambidextrous player, where when I was playing indoor handball, I was on the right wing, so I got to use my left hand. Or I was on the left wing, I got to use my right hand. It was when I got into beach handball that the applications for being able to use both really started to come into play. And in addition to using either hand for specialist shots, you can also use either hand on the in-flight. I'd say this is probably my signature shot in beach handball. And you can see that I go up, I look like I'm going to use my left. The goalkeeper's on my left, so I switch to my right and go under his leg. Similar type of thing here. I catch it with my left, and in the air I switch to my right. This was from the last World Championships, and on the replay I think you'll see that I make the catch with my right hand. I switch it to my left, and then still finish on the goal. And one more, make the switch from the left to right, and I actually went far post on that one. So the angles and possibilities that you have once you develop a certain level of ambidexterity really opens up your possibilities as far as what you can do, the moves you can create, and it makes it considerably more difficult for defenders and goalkeepers to guard you. Which brings me to my first point. When you think of the benefits of why would you want to work towards becoming ambidextrous, because to 15-year-old me, it was pretty obvious. Like, if you could do it, there's so many options, but it is a question that people ask me. It's like, why? Like, why would you want to, even if you could? And the first one, as I've referenced in the other clips, is you provide a tactical versatility for your coach, your manager, for your team, and being able to play either position. Now, granted, as Roman Kalashnikov and Drew Donlan have illustrated, you don't necessarily have to play with both hands to play on both sides, but it certainly helps. If I can pull up where was it? I just had it. My apologies. Let me go back to a clip. So when I talk about tactical versatility, to give you an example, this sequence of clips was from the 2018 Pan American Championships. Keep on pressing the space bar. My apologies. Let me open this back up. So when I talk about tactical versatility, to give you an example, I'm going to show you two clips from our 2018 Pan American Championships. So we're in a half-court setting. I'm playing the right wing, and I make this one-handed catch. Now, when I'm playing on the right wing, I'm playing on the opposite side of our subline. So when I'm substituting on, I'm actually substituting on our left wing side first. And then if our fast break, that you see me score this fast break goal here, if the fast break doesn't work, then I just move to the right wing and I play right wing on attack. But being able to use both hands, I can facilitate our team's fast break on one wing and make plays like this. Stop pressing the space bar, Ebiye. My apologies. Here. Let's click this company. So I think a goal was scored, or there's some sort of transition here. So the goalie tries to facilitate a fast break, throws the ball to our pivot, who throws me an in-flight, and being able to use either hand and just use my right hand here, make one end catch and score. And being able to do that because I'm playing right wing, when we don't have a fast break, for a lot of teams, they would just have their right wing just running across the other side. But the fact that I can play on either wing means I can run the fast break on whatever the near side wing is. And then if in our half court set, we play with me on the opposite wing, I can just move there and be an attacking threat on that wing, as you see, and make the in-flight goal there. And I mean, the possibilities really are endless, and by and large, they haven't been discovered too in depth because there aren't too many ambidextrous players in beach handball. I'm pretty sure I'm the only one that I know of, at least on like a world championship stage. But there's a lot of potential to be explored as far as the tactical options that ambidextrous players provide your team. The second point is you can control the space between yourself and your defenders. As I mentioned, if you can use either hand, a lot of the switch hand goals, the goalkeepers are conditioned to position themselves based on what hand they think you're going to shoot with. And so once they position themselves on one arm, they're probably putting themselves out of position if you were to switch hands. And as my switch hand goals demonstrate, that when you have the ability to use either hand, it allows you to kind of control the space between you and defenders and you and goalkeepers much greater than if you can only use one arm and they know what arm you're going to use, and the defense and the goalkeeper can more or less game plan around that. And while those are the two things that kind of show up as why it's beneficial on the court, the two things that a lot of people don't think about off the court is when you start to develop as an ambidextrous athlete, you tend to gain more of an understanding of the skills that you're learning than if you were to just try them on one side. For the longest time, when I was trying to develop the strength and the coordination on my left, my right side was more or less the teacher. And as you know, Manuel, you learn so much when you're teaching something, not just when you're trying to learn it. And I know that my right arm and my ability to shoot and score goals with my right has benefited greatly from having the experience of also training with my left. And along those notes, I call it more reps, less fatigue. And to give you an example, let's say that a given player can throw 100 balls before their arm gets tired, right? So your normal player who is unilaterally dominant will throw 100 right-handed throws in practice and then call it a day. But if you're ambidextrous, you can do 75 throws with your right and 75 throws with your left. So you're getting in more reps, and each of your respective arms is less fatigued than if you were to put all those reps on one side. And I'd say one of the biggest benefits that people wouldn't think of, but that I can attribute to being an ambidextrous player, is I'm a lot healthier. If all the training I've done over the past 10, 11 years, if all of those reps were just on my right arm, I probably would be injured from an overuse related injury. And it just helps to be able to kind of spare your body and not put all that stress on one side, but be able to split it from both sides. And you also have what I call, two heads are better than one. When you work on a new skill and you work on it from both sides, just neurologically, you gain more perspective on that skill than if you just work on it on one side, which goes back to having a more holistic understanding of movements. And finally, people ask me, once they accept the fact that it is possible to be ambidextrous, what advice would I give to anyone who wants to be an ambidextrous handball player or beach handball player? First thing is, the younger you start, the better. I started when I was 15. It probably would have been easier if I started, when I was like 5. But it's never too late. But generally speaking, the earlier you start, the easier it is to just develop the coordination, baseline coordination on both sides. Second thing is, do everything ambidextrously. There'll be people who like the idea of, being an ambidextrous handball player, ambidextrous baseball player, and they only work on their ambidexterity in the sport. But what's going to help you in the long run is developing overall fine and gross motor control on both sides. So as you saw in the beginning, I was writing with both hands, learning how to brush my teeth with both hands, eat with both hands. I really made my life one that centered around being ambidextrous, and that's going to accelerate your development much more so than if you only think about using both hands in your sport. And then my last little tip, it's kind of been my secret over the years. I feel I probably shouldn't be sharing this, but at least I shouldn't be sharing this until I retire. But one of the things I'll do is I'll watch athletes that I look up to, that I'm a fan of. In this case, Luke Ebiye, being a wing, getting into handball. It was one of my earliest inspirations. And what I'll do is I'll watch footage of him, and he's a left-handed player. He's a right wing, the French national team, PSG. Let me play this one more time. He's a left-handed player. And so if I want to learn a move of his, this is a roulette, right? And he does it with his left hand, and you can see it from different angles. What I've done, not just with him, but with other players, is that I'll watch it on one side, mirror image the footage, and then see how it looks with his other hand. So him doing the same moves you just saw, just with his right hand, and just kind of getting a visual of what that looks like. And, I do that for, any player that I'm kind of inspired by, just kind of gain perspective on what they would look like doing this move on both sides, whether it's Uwe Gensheimer, Victor Tomas, or, any of the players that I've looked up to, both indoor and beach handball, just seeing how certain moves and how the sequence of muscle contractions on both sides is done has helped accelerate my ambidextrous development and understanding of the game. But that is my presentation. That's my ambidexterity in beach handball story. I would imagine you have a couple questions, Manuel, but if not, I appreciate your time, buddy.
Incredible, Ebiye. Incredible. I don't have enough words to define what I saw, because if you repeat, I can't understand at all, because well, it's incredible. I can imagine a little boy seeing you and try to understand. Well, left, right. Well, it's Saddam. He's Saddam for the goalkeepers. They are hating you every time you are very close to the area, because, well, what are he going to do? I don't know. Well, he's jumping with the right, but switch on the left. It's very, very difficult to attack your tactic, because it's so complex for a goalkeeper. I suppose. I am very, very crazy with your presentation. I love it. Well, I think this is very, very. I could dream to have your ability, because very, very useful. Maybe this is the way for the future, for the new players. Try to improve their movements, improve their abilities, and then just try it, because I could imagine that people look for the book and learning what have to do. They have to do. Well, it's difficult to make any question about your presentation, because it's just try to do it and learn. Test and fail and test again and do it again.
I will say it's
when you talk when you told me, talk about the passion, no? Be passionate about this process.
Yeah.
Patience, please give me a few.
Yeah, passion's good. I think passion fits.
But
the motivation,
but it's so complex.
inspiration to.
Yeah, but especially when you start trying to use both hands, it's very difficult to be patient, because you say, well, it's impossible. It's impossible. No?
No, and, I think, I showed a lot of clips of like highlights of things that I did, but it's been very difficult. I definitely had to take a step back. When I started working on it, that was essentially the end of my basketball career. I wasn't going to be able to play like at my high school, playing with both. I took a step back so I could ultimately take steps forward, if that analogy makes sense. But it's definitely been a process, and it's a lot that I've had to figure out. I'm fortunate that I did have an ambidexterity mentor, someone who was able to motivate me and inspire me and give me ideas, Michael J. Lavery, who I mentioned earlier in the presentation. So I did have some help, but a lot of it was me figuring it out on my own, me messing up a lot. I had games where, with my left hand, I missed every shot just because, the feeling wasn't quite there. The shots that you'd expect, players at my level to make. So it hasn't been the smoothest road, but it is something that, I dedicated myself to, and I knew there'd be growing pains. But, on the other side of it is you ultimately having a skill set that will separate you from the rest of the world. And like you said, I think it's the future. May not be the immediate future. It might take some time for other people to catch on and see that it's possible and that it's worth investing, but it is an investment. I'd say it's probably the best way to describe it. It's not something that, you can learn in 3 weeks and, be one of the best players in the world with both hands. For me, it's been 11 years that I've been working on it now, and I've been working on it throughout the duration of my handball career. And I was fortunate that when I got into handball, I got to play more time on the right wing with my left hand, and I got a lot of reps. I got a lot of experience with my left that I didn't have the first 15 years of my life to kind of catch up. And this is really when I got into beach handball. It was when, things started to really click, and I started experimenting with how can I really leverage my ability to use both. And it's something I'm still working on. I'm still trying to think of ways to make use of the fact that I can play with either hand. This past year in particular, as you saw most of the video clips, I play either the right wing or the left wing, but 2019 is the first year that, at least for Team USA, I've been a primary center back. And I'm still developing kind of my ambidextrous game from the middle. I think there's a lot of possibility with being able to penetrate and make passes with either hand and be able to make spin shots with either hand. But as I mentioned earlier, I was MVP of Norca, so I think I'm on my way, and we're going to be at the World Beach Games in Qatar, and I hope that the culmination of everything I've been working on the past 11 years with this, it all comes to fruition with my performance there.
Okay, it's enough. Maybe it's enough for today. But you are, as I told you, a player for the future. But we can enjoy in the present nowadays. Please continue, expand your tactic, your knowledge. Thanks a lot. It's a pleasure for me learn a lot with you, with your videos, with your slides. Well, it's a pleasure. I'm sure the audience will learn a lot with your presentation. Thanks a lot in advance. Please, I would like to meet you whenever it's possible, because virtual way is perfect, but I prefer real life.
Of course,
yeah.
Of course.
Come on, grow a lot. I follow you, whatever you do. Thanks a lot.
No, really, the pleasure was mine. Like I said, it was fun for me to talk about. I don't get to talk about it too often, and it's just cool to share my journey. And I appreciate you you inviting me to be one of the keynote speakers for this Congress. I know there are a lot of amazing speakers. far as the players, the coaches, the delegates. You know, it's a lot of famous people in the beach handball world, and to be chosen in this capacity, to kind of be respected and revered for what I've done, and to be looked at as someone who has something to share is really heartwarming, and it's something that I'm very grateful for. So then, I appreciate the time. It's cool for me to talk about. It's funny looking at a lot of the footage from when I was 15 and 16 and just starting, and seeing my growth till today. So this entire process has been fun, and you know, we get the opportunity to meet, you know, the World Championships. I want to play the Arena Handball Tour. You know, with all of our USA guys, you know, we really want to play in the Arena Handball Tour. We talk about it all the time. It looks like an incredible spectacle. So hopefully, you know, one day I can get out there, maybe bring some of my USA guys, and we can meet up and we can chat more in person.
Perfect. Keep in touch. Good luck. Good luck. Thanks a lot again.
All right, thanks, buddy. Have a good day.
Bye.